Let me ask you about that fundamental thing, which is that daughter mother relationship and some of the conflict that exists there. What are those common things that you've seen as a pediatrician in your office where that mother daughter conflict exists? When you're with that daughter quietly at 14, 15, and you're asking those doctor questions and she begins to tell you, what do you hear at the core of those mother daughter conflicts?
Well, that's very interesting because I hear a lot and I like to tell the girls stories. One of the things that girls of all ages will tell me in private is they feel that their moms are trying to move into a space they don't want them.
Huh.
They're trying to move in with their friends. They're trying to move in. I've had a lot of girls say, I am so embarrassed when my mom writes on my Facebook page or my mom, is in Instagram or talking about me. And so they feel that these boundaries that they want as a young girl or particularly as a teenage daughter, to them it's creepy when mom moves into her space, wants to be her friends' best friends. And they feel a competitiveness with their mother, and they don't want that.
Huh.
And I sense mothers being competitive with their daughters, though they don't know it. I would go sometimes in the inner city and talk to these 8th graders. And I'd walk in with my Talbot's pants or skirt on. And I'd say, guys, I don't look like you. I don't want to look like you. I'm older than you, but let's just talk. And kids love it when you sort of
It's
say,
honest.
it's honest.
Yeah, you're not trying to be them.
I'm not trying to be
Well,
cool. Yeah.
Meg, in fact, in the book, you mentioned these 4 mom types. And I was talking to Jean as we were preparing for this, but you mentioned needy mom, controlling mom, distant mom, and best friend mom. And you've hit the best friend mom. And Jean said, what's the healthy mom? And I said, I don't know if it's you're ping-ponging between these 4 or what.
Yeah.
With those, I mean, they're self-evident. Needy mom, that emotional need. And then controlling mom. I think a lot of moms, regardless if they have sons or daughters, it's a natural mom instinct to be a bit more controlling because they fear the environment that their kids are in. Then that distant mom, see you later, do whatever you're going to do. I grew up that way. I didn't have strong parents and you could do it too. And I'll see you next Saturday. And then as you described the best friend mom, but what's the healthy mom look like?
The healthy mom, and that's a great point. I should have put that in there. But I think the reason I put those in there is because each of us mothers has a little bit of each in there.
Yeah, it's 100% of moms are going to fall into that
Exactly.
pit.
And you're going to identify. But what you want to do, for instance, is if you feel you're a needy mom and you're a needy mom, and I hear mothers of 25, 30-year-olds saying, my kids need me. And I say that they really don't. And they find it very offensive. The needy mom is the one who constantly is overseeing every minute detail in the child's life because it makes her feel better. And so once she begins to identify that, then she can say, wait a minute, I don't need my kids. I don't need my kids.
Huh.
The kids need me to do things, but I don't need them. And then once you reconcile that, then you become a healthy mom because something shifts in your relationship. If you feel you're a distant mom, and often we mothers are one of these things because we come into our parenting with a preload.
Yeah.
Our own parenting. If we're a distant mom and we're uncomfortable with our daughters and we don't want to, we're constantly putting our daughters off. Once we learn to break that, then we're a healthy mom. So a healthy mother is a one who knows who she is, who knows that she's a woman created by God, who knows that God, Christ, is her everything.
Yeah.
And if she had nothing in the world, she didn't have a home, she didn't have a husband, she didn't have her children because they all died, she would be okay.
Yeah. Meg, let me ask you, for the mom who is going, wow, I think I'm at least one of those 4, maybe 3 of the 4, maybe 4 of the 4. What can she do differently? How does she communicate in a healthy way with her daughter? Do you sit down and say, honey, I may have done some things that have been damaging to our relationship. And I've done that unintentionally. But I heard this program today, and have I tried to be your friend's friend? Has that been embarrassing to you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that's what you can do, but is it good to be that bold?
It is. And one of the things I'll do with our kids, and even as adult kids, because I'll notice after certain conversations, they'll throw darts at me, and they're adult women. And so I'll go to them and say, clearly something I'm doing is irritating to you. and I don't want to be that way. Could you tell me what that is? And
Yeah, be
often,
honest.
be honest. What is that? But
really
here's
good.
the hard part. When your kids tell you that, it's
Yeah.
really painful
And
because
don't strike back
don't
emotionally.
strike back. You say thank you so much and then change that. Because a lot of that comes through our conversation with our daughters. We don't realize our tone. We don't realize the words we're saying. We don't realize what we're communicating to our daughters.
I'm
And
laughing because dads do the same thing,
do
right?
they? Yeah. But in general, I think dads are a little bit better listeners. But what a mother will tend to do, and I've done this a million times, you ask your daughter a question, she starts to tell you her answer, and halfway through her answer, we're formulating our correction of that answer. And we started as
that's so
soon as she
true.
stops. And what the daughter gets is, you could care less about anything I have to say. You have an agenda, Mom. You're trying to push me in one direction. So listening and particularly listening to what your girls have to say about you and their relationship with you is critical to a healthy relationship. But you have to be a strong enough adult to take it and say, thank you so much. From now on, I'm not going to wear any of your clothes. And it's your day. And I'm going to back off with you and your friends. I'm not going to write on your Facebook page or whatever. And be okay with that.